Here.
No.
Sorry, it's just been so much better for the video.
When you start the video, you should like pop up the stairs.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
I missed you.
Or just like
Yeah, that would
that
be
out, like,
hilarious.
with the big up to the Welcome back.
7 Swan's movie. All right, so
Yeah, I think so.
thank you guys for coming up here. Do you guys see any issues in your room? Now, looking quickly, I actually almost told Ethan, don't forget you need 2 answers, and then I realized that was silly of me. Why is that? Yeah, because remember when we set up our 2 equations like Abby did, 9 and -9, we have our two problems that we can set up there. Because it could either, again, kind of cover that part up, and it either can equal 9 or -9. Now, in Ethan's case, he moved the 9 or the 6 over to begin with, and then it was equal to 0. There's not a positive and -0 with that we have to worry about. So, very good. I initially thought he did something wrong, not thinking, and then realized that I was overreacting. So, good work. So what we're doing today is we're combining the 2 ideas we've talked about the last couple of days. We're taking inequalities and absolute value and putting them together. So since inequalities we did last class, I didn't think we need them as our warm-up, but to remind you guys of the different type of absolute value here, the one that Abby shows that we have 2 different answers, and then Ethan's only had 1. So we're solving absolute value inequalities, so combining those 2 ideas together. And then also compound inequalities as well. So kind of including both those ideas. So just a reminder that so absolute value, so if it helps to remember, anytime you see the absolute value symbols. And then inequalities, we have these guys. So kind of the different things to remember. What are some things you would remind someone if your sibling came home and said, hey, we started talking about absolute value or inequalities today, either one, what would you remind them to do? What are some of the things we have to remember to do with absolute value or inequalities or both? Your masks up. There's probably like 3 things you want to remember to tell them to do.
When you divide by a negative, you need to flip the
Very
inequality.
Right. So when you divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality or multiply either. When you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip that inequality. So that would be definitely something I'd want to tell someone about that. Other things. They have more to do with the absolute value part of it. You guys remember? So thinking about what Abby and Ethan did in there. So if it's negative, there's going to be no solution. So if the absolute value equals a negative. Now that's a little bit weird with inequality. So I don't know if I'm going to write that down quite yet. We might have to address that maybe a little bit later. There's a kind of a special case there. Yeah.
There's 2 answers.
There can be up to 2 answers. That is spelled wrong, sorry. Version. Like Verizon.
Did you start the video?
Yeah.
I thought you forgot.
Positive and negative version of the answer. What did Ethan do in his problem that was correct? What did he do first? His very first step, he didn't set up two equations, he didn't need to. But. What did he do first? Not quite.
He,
He moved it over, he isolated the absolute values, that's the finish notes for later. So, Tara, if you look, I altered the homework a little bit, so I changed it, what's written in pen is what you should read. So isolate the absolute value first. That's probably the biggest thing that people forget about is isolating that absolute value first. Now, what Kinsey mentioned about the negative and positive thing, those are kind of special cases. That's not going to come up very often, especially with inequalities. So just a heads up, I probably am going to avoid trying to do too many that do kind of crazy answers, no solution and stuff with the inequalities. So you can kind of not have to worry about that too much. Okay, so in a problem like this first example, I'm going to tell you what you need to do here. But we're going to do this 2x minus 6 is less than or equal to 24. This is the really, this is kind of like just a run-of-the-mill problem with these. So it could be a positive and negative version. We need to isolate the absolute value first. So is the absolute value isolated? Oh gosh, 7 swans.
not you.
Is the absolute value isolated? Yeah, it is. So absolute value is isolated. So we can set up our two equations. This is the new part. So this might be the kind of the one new takeaway. When we set up our two equations, on the negative version of it, we're going to flip the inequality. So you're going to set up a positive and negative inequality, but on the negative one, you're going to flip it. So on the negative, we have to flip the inequality. I'll show you guys what that looks like. So this is what makes today a little bit tougher. It's going to seem a lot the same, except for this one step on it. So this one stays as it is. Good luck. Stay dry. Ish. So this one stays as it exactly is. But this one, I'm going to flip the inequality and make it negative. So that happens here. So I flipped it and made it negative. I don't know what that bubble thing is. So notice, inequality switched and so did the sign here. Now we're going to solve each of them. That was getting loud over there. We can solve this one. This is our kind of run-of-the-mill one. X is less than or equal to 15. Solve this one. There's our other one. So greater than or equal to -9. So this is the big mistake you can make, is not remembering to flip that inequality on that second part of the problem. Now we're ready to graph this, and we're going to put this on our number line. What two numbers do I need to put on our number line? What numbers are necessary for our number line? Yeah. -9 and 15. So the smaller one's going to go over here. -9, 15 is going to go over here. I don't need to put all the little tick marks in between. I get the idea, as long as you're smallest to largest. What kind of circles?
Closed.
Closed. Because of the equal to. And then I have to talk myself through this. X is what compared to 15? Less. But then what compared to -9?
Greater than.
Greater than. Do you guys remember what this kind of inequality is called? You learned that back in algebra.
Oh,
It's like a compound inequality, and there's and or. Is this an and or an or, do you think? And it has to, both have to happen. So this would be an and inequality, because it has to be greater than -9, but less than 15. So it can be in that range of values, anything between these, so like 0 would work, 14, 14.9 would work, anything in that range of values. Okay?
Yes.
Let's look at example 2, and then we're gonna do maybe some whiteboards.
Outside.
Good one.
It's just too hot, you know?
Yeah.
Wicked sunburn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It just set on fire.
So hot.
Have you seen the weather in Colorado lately? So they have forest fires going on, so there's fire everywhere. And so my friend lives in Colorado, and her weather actually said smoke. You know how it says sunny or cloudy, it says smoke. Like that was her weather.
It was supposed to snow there.
Yeah, so it was 100 degrees. Not even, I think she said Sunday was 100 degrees where she was. And then it was supposed to get to a low in the 30s, and there was a winter storm warning.
Oh.
It's on fire, it's hot, and then it winter storm warning. So it's kind of like the apocalypse right now in
My brother and his girlfriend went there and they were gonna go camping there, but they couldn't have bonfires to cook their food. So
Yeah, no, right. It's and actually there's a big forest fire that started in California the other day.
Wasn't it because of a gender reveal?
Yeah, someone did a gender reveal party with some sort of flame, and they started the whole forest on
I think it
fire.
was fireworks.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, so bad idea.
What was it?
I don't know. It's a bad start to a kid's life.
You're the reason our house is on fire.
You burned down the whole city. So,
Just because we wanted to know
Right.
what you were.
okay, so again, this one's ready to be set up into 2 separate equations because it already has the absolute value isolated. So we're going to do our 2 separate versions. The first one doesn't change at all. The second one, we have to flip it and change the sign. So this is going to go this way instead. So flip on this one. So I'm writing myself a note there, so if you looked away for a second, you came back and you didn't realize that, you didn't flip the inequality. Super important. Now we're going to solve these just like we normally would, and then we'll put them on our number line. Y is greater than 4. Y is less than -2. When I go to put that on my number line, then the smaller one comes first, bigger one second. But this time these are open circles because that line is not included on the inequality. But this time it's going what compared to 4? Greater. Sorry. It's trying to eat the y, so it's bigger than 4. And then compared to -2, less. So this one's considered an or inequality. It's one or the other. I always say it looks like an oars of a boat, hanging off the side.
Oh.
So, or, different kind of or, but get the idea. Right? So, why don't we pause right there, and we'll grab some whiteboards. So, or do you want one more example?
One more.
One more.
Yeah,
Let's
let's do one
finish
more.
the absolute value examples. Okay. Do you see why this one's maybe more difficult? Yeah, go ahead.
You have to divide by -2, and in that process, you have to flip the integer as well.
Yeah, so we're gonna flip inequalities multiple times in this problem, which makes it extra tough. So what we need to do is, what he mentioned was, we want to divide by a -2 to get rid of that to begin with. But since we're dividing by a negative, we have to flip the inequality. So we have to do that before we set up our two inequalities to begin with. One thing we have to remember, we have to isolate that absolute value first. So the inequality flips, so it's greater than 3. And now we're gonna set up our two inequalities. So there's like multiple steps in this one. We flip the inequality because we divided by a negative, and now we have to do our two versions here. So it's greater than 3, but less than -3. So again, we flipped again here. Right. So now we have two equations we can solve, or two inequalities to solve. So if you look, we're in between 1 and 4 here. So I have my 1, my 4 on here. I don't know why this number line's so giant. You don't need to use it all. Open circles. But what's C compared to 4? Bigger. Like it's trying to eat the C, so that means C is bigger. But C compared to 1, and remember, I always think of the inequality kind of looks like a little L, so it's less than 1. So then we're going this way. So out. So this again is an OR inequality. You can do one or the other. Either you can wear your mask or you can leave. One or the other. All right, I'm going to pause the video while we do a little bit of extra practice here.
Peace out. We'll see you after this break.